Hello and welcome back to another session, exciting session called Characteristic of Database and Data Warehouse. So what are the different characteristics of database and data warehouse? So you will be learning in this particular chapter. So the very first, the characteristic of, let's understand what are the different characteristics of database. The very first is the offers security and removes the redundancy. So security is paramount in database and is protected with a multi-layer. Data store is indexed to make accessing relevant information more accessible. Only the unique records are stored in the database by removing the redundant data. So basically the redundant data means duplicate data, which will affect the performance of the database itself. What is the second characteristics of database? Allow the multiple views of the data. Once the data is modeled and stored as per the business need, data can be used to mix and match with the multiple options. For example, you can view your sales data at the state level, county level, the zip code level. Also, you can view the sales data at a different age group level. So what is third thing, third characteristic of database? It follows the ACID compliance. What is ACID compliance? So ACID is nothing but the atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. Let's understand each one of them. What is atomicity? So an atomic transaction is an indivisible, and irreducible series of database operations such that either all occur or nothing occurs. A guarantee of atomicity prevents the updates to the database occurring only partially. That means if you are updating certain data, so you have to update it completely. So this partial, the updating of the data, which can cause greater problems than rejecting the old series outright. So this particular, because of this, the nature of the database, atomicity nature of the database, it will not accept the partial updation of the data. As a consequence, the transactions cannot be observed to be in progress by another database client. So if you don't enforce the atomicity, it will allow the partial updation of the data. So that means if you are updating certain information and the other the person who is referring to the data will not be able to see those changes. Second one is what is consistency. Database consistency states that only the valid data will be returned to the database. If a transaction is executed that violates the database consistency rules, the entire transaction will be rolled back and the database will be restored to its original state. For example, a column in a database may only have the values for the coin flip as heads and tails. If user were to attempt to put in sideways, the consistency rules for the database would not allow it. So what is isolation? Isolation in the context of databases basically specifies when and how the changes implemented in an operation become viable and become viable to other, the operational systems. So a database acquires logs and data to maintain a high level of isolation. What is durability? A durability guarantees that the transactions that are committed will survive permanently. For example, if a flight booking reports that a seat has successfully been booked, then seat will remain booked even the system crashes. That's called as durability. Durability can be achieved by flushing the transactions log records to non-volatile storage before acknowledgement is committed. And what is the next characteristic of characteristic of database? It allows the installation between the programs and the data. So this is basically called as program. This is basically called as program data independence, which allows the changing the data storage structures and operations without having to change the DBMS access programs. What is the next characteristics? Sharing of the data and multi-user transaction processing. A multi-user DBMS must allow the multiple users to access the database at the same time. It is essential if the data from multiple applications is to be integrated and maintained in the same database that the DBMS includes the concurrency control. What is the last characteristics of database? Relational database support multi-user environment. This is basically an execution of the database operations in a parallel manner by applying the distributed multiple processing units. So we have learned about the different characteristics of the database. Now let's learn about what are the different characteristics of data warehouse. So a data warehouse is basically a subject-oriented information is provided. The information which is provided in data warehouse is subject-oriented as it offers the information related to theme instead of company's ongoing operations. So what do you mean by that? Data warehouse data supports in alternative activities such as sales analysis, trend analysis, forecasting, which are much needed for an organization to take the strategic or you can say the informative decisions rather than your daily transactions. Data stored is common as well as unanimous. The data can also be stored in the data warehouse in a common and unanimously acceptable manner. This means that data can be accessed by anyone who is permitted to the data without revealing their identity. Fourth thing, historic trends or longer time horizon. The time horizon for the data warehouse is relatively extensive compared to other operational systems. Yes, the data stored in the data warehouse can be historic, even like 5 years, 10 years, sometimes even 50 years as well. Unlike database holds data up to a day or a week, then it is called as data warehouse. What is the fourth point? Data storage is incremental. So a data warehouse is non-volatile in nature, which means the previous data is not erased when new information is entered into it. Data which is stored in the data warehouse is an incremental basis. That means the previously loaded data won't be deleted unless and otherwise there is a reason to do so. This is basically like, the characteristics of database and data warehouse. I hope you enjoyed this session. I will see you in the next topic. Thank you.